Welcome to our YouTube channel, The Alien Tales, and please ensure that you have subscribed.
The beautiful alien I love is just the lure. Something else wears her like a suit. I notice small inconsistencies. The way her shadow moves a second too late. The extra teeth that appear when she truly smiles. The rescue pod's emergency beacon had been silent for 3 days when we found her floating in the debris field of what used to be the merchant vessel Nightingale. Commander Thorne insisted we leave her. Another mouth to feed, another complication, but I couldn't ignore those eyes. Even unconscious, suspended in the medical bay's regeneration tank, Lyralei's presence filled the room like starlight. She was breathtaking in a way that made my chest ache. Her skin held an opalescent quality that shifted between pearl and silver depending on the light. Hair like spun moonbeams cascaded past her shoulders, and when she finally opened her eyes, God, those eyes. They were the color of nebulae, purple and blue swirling with flecks of gold. "Where am I?" she whispered, her voice carrying a musical quality that made the medical equipment hum in harmony. "You're safe," I said, leaning closer to the tank. "I'm Dr. Kael Brennan. You were in an accident. Do you remember anything?" She pressed her palm against the transparent aluminum, and I matched it with mine. The warmth that radiated through the barrier was impossible. The tank maintained a precise temperature, but I felt it nonetheless. "Lyralei," she said softly. "My name is Lyralei Valen. I was traveling. There was an explosion." Her eyes met mine, and something passed between us. A recognition that transcended species, transcended the vastness of space that had brought us together. In that moment, I knew my life had changed forever. The tank systems beeped, indicating her recovery was complete. As the fluid drained away, I told myself the flutter in my chest was just the artificial gravity fluctuating. I was wrong about many things that day. 2 weeks into her recovery, I found myself making excuses to visit the observation deck where Lyralei spent her evenings. She claimed the stars helped her remember her home world, though she remained frustratingly vague about its location. Not that I minded, her company was intoxicating. "Tell me about Earth," she said, settling beside me on the viewing couch. Her skin seemed to absorb the starlight, giving her an ethereal glow. I launched into stories of rainforests and oceans, of cities that touched the sky and mountains that scraped the heavens. She listened with rapt attention, occasionally asking questions that revealed a curious mind. Yet something nagged at me, a discordant note in an otherwise perfect symphony. It started with small things. The way she never seemed to cast a shadow quite right, as if the light bent around her a fraction of a second too slowly. Her reflection in the observation deck's polished surfaces appeared slightly delayed, like an echo of her movements rather than a true mirror image. "Your planet sounds beautiful," she said, turning to face me. Her smile was radiant, but for just an instant, so brief I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. I saw too many teeth. Sharp, predatory teeth that belonged in the mouth of something that had never known civilization. "Are you feeling all right?" I asked, concerned by the way she'd gone rigid. "Of course," she replied, her smile returning to its normal, perfect state. "Just homesick, I suppose." But as she spoke, her shadow continued moving for just a heartbeat longer than it should have, reaching for me with fingers that seemed far too long. I blinked, and everything was normal again. My research suffered. Captain Morrison reprimanded me twice for submitting incomplete reports, but I couldn't focus on stellar cartography when Lyralei existed in the same universe. She consumed my thoughts like a beautiful poison, and I welcomed the toxicity. We developed routines. Breakfast in the mess hall, where she picked at her food with delicate fingers that seemed too graceful for manual labor. Afternoon walks through the ship's corridors, her laughter echoing off the metal walls like music. Evenings on the observation deck, where she would rest her head on my shoulder, and I would pretend not to notice how her breathing never quite synced with mine. "Kael," she said one evening, my name rolling off her tongue like a prayer. "What would you do if I told you I wasn't what I appeared to be?" My heart hammered against my ribs. "What do you mean?" She was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a weight that seemed to press against my chest. "Everyone wears masks, don't they? Shows the world what they want to see rather than what they truly are." "Not you," I said, turning to face her, You're the most genuine person I've ever met. Her laugh was like breaking glass. Oh, Kael. Sweet, brilliant Kael. You see what you want to see. In the reflection of the observation window, I watched her stand and move toward the exit. But her shadow remained seated beside me for 3 full seconds before jerking upright and following her retreating form. My hands trembled as I reached for the ship's internal sensors, pulling up the environmental data for the observation deck. The temperature had dropped 5 degrees during our conversation, and the atmospheric composition showed trace elements that shouldn't exist in a contained environment. Something was very wrong, but I was already too deep to care. Sleep became elusive. I found myself in the ship's data core at all hours, running analysis after analysis on the debris field where we'd found Lyralei. The Nightingale's flight recorder had been damaged, but I managed to recover fragments of the final moments. The ship hadn't exploded from within. Something had torn it apart from the outside, something massive, with appendages that left claw marks in the hull plating. The final transmission was garbled, but I enhanced it through 17 different filters until I could make out the words, "It's not her. It's wearing her. God help us. It's wearing." The recording cut to static. I cross-referenced the Nightingale's manifest with galactic databases. Lyralei Valen wasn't listed among the passengers or crew. In fact, there was no record of anyone by that name anywhere in the colonial registry. My hands shook as I pulled up the security footage from the night we'd found her. Frame by frame, I watched our boarding party extract the rescue pod. The readings showed one life sign inside, but when they opened the pod, the scanners registered something else for exactly 0.3 seconds before settling on humanoid. I enhanced that 0.3 seconds until my eyes burned. The shape in the pod wasn't human. It was something with too many joints, too many angles, wearing human form like an ill-fitting coat. A sound behind me made me spin around. Lyralei stood in the doorway, her perfect face marred by an expression I'd never seen before. Predatory, calculating, ancient. "Working late again?" she asked, but her voice carried harmonics that made my teeth ache. "Just some routine analysis," I lied, closing the files with hands that wouldn't quite steady. She approached slowly, and with each step, the lights dimmed just a fraction. "You know, Kael, curiosity can be dangerous. Sometimes it's better not to know the truth." Her shadow stretched across the floor, reaching for me with fingers that definitely had too many joints. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think about anything except the evidence accumulating in my private files. 3 more ships had gone missing along the same trade route where we'd found the Nightingale. Each time, rescue pods were recovered. Each time, a single beautiful survivor with no verifiable identity. The pattern was unmistakable once you knew what to look for. I found Lyralei in the hydroponics bay, tending to the ship's garden with an attention that seemed almost religious. The plants leaned toward her as if drawn by an invisible force, their leaves turning colors I'd never seen in Earth flora. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. She didn't turn around. "Do we?" I was hoping we could avoid this conversation a little longer. "What are you?" Now she turned, and her smile was radiant and terrible. "I'm exactly what you fell in love with, Kael. Beautiful, mysterious, perfect. Isn't that what you wanted? The other ships fed me," she interrupted, her voice dropping to something that vibrated in my bones. "Sustained me, gave me the energy to maintain this form that you find so appealing." The plants around her began to wither, their life force drawn into her luminous skin. "You're killing them. Everything dies, Kael. The only question is whether it serves a purpose." She stepped closer, and I could feel the cold radiating from her skin. "You could serve a purpose. You could help me reach Earth." "Earth?" Horror crept up my spine. "How many people?" "Billions," she said with the casual tone of someone discussing the weather. "An entire world of beautiful, warm, living energy. Thanks to you, I know exactly how to find it." My hand moved toward the emergency beacon on my belt, but she was faster than physics should have allowed. Pain exploded through my wrist as something that definitely wasn't a hand clamped down on it. I looked up into Lyralei's face and saw cracks appearing in her perfect features like a porcelain mask shattering in slow motion. "I really did hope we could avoid this," she said, but her voice was layered now. The musical tones I'd fallen in love with overlaying something that sounded like grinding metal and screaming winds. You were so much more pleasant than the others. So willing to believe in beauty. The cracks in her face widened, revealing glimpses of something underneath that my mind refused to process. Chitinous segments, compound eyes that reflected light in patterns that hurt to look at, mandibles that clicked together with predatory satisfaction. The real Lyralei Valen died 3 months ago, she continued, her grip tightening until I felt bones creak. Along with her entire research team, they were studying deep space parasites. Ironic, really? Her shadow split apart, revealing itself to be composed of writhing appendages that had been compressed into a human silhouette. They reached for me with hungry intent, and I finally understood why the temperature always dropped when she was near. She was feeding on the thermal energy, the bioelectric fields, the very life force of everything around her. What are you? I gasped. Hungry, she replied, and her beautiful face collapsed entirely, revealing the nightmare beneath. Always hungry. Your species calls us the Mordak, though we prefer to think of ourselves as shepherds. We tend to flocks across the galaxy, harvesting when the time is right. The thing that had worn Lyralei's face like a suit loomed over me, its true form a nightmarish fusion of insect and shadow, beautiful and terrible in ways that made my sanity strain at its moorings. Earth will feed us for centuries, it whispered with 1,000 voices. Adrenaline flooded my system as survival instincts overrode horror. I triggered the emergency beacon with my free hand, sending out a ship-wide alert. Alarms began blaring throughout the corridors, and I could hear running footsteps approaching the hydroponics bay. The Mordak's grip loosened slightly as it tilted its grotesque head toward the sound. How thoughtful. You've gathered them all in one place for me. It released my wrist, and I stumbled backward, cradling the injured limb. The creature began to expand, its compressed form unfolding like a nightmare origami. Segments of its body telescoped outward, revealing rows of feeding appendages that pulsed with bioluminescent hunger. The others won't believe you, it said, its voice now a chorus of clicks and whistles that somehow still carried meaning. They'll see what I want them to see. Beautiful, terrified Lyralei being attacked by her deranged lover. The door burst open, and Captain Morrison rushed in, followed by Chief Security Officer Valdez and Dr. Sarah Chan from the medical bay. Their weapons were drawn, but their expressions showed confusion rather than understanding. Dr. Brennan, Morrison barked. Step away from her. I spun around and saw that they were looking at Lyralei, perfect, beautiful, seemingly human Lyralei cowering against the far wall. To their eyes, she appeared normal, unmarked by the revelation I'd just witnessed. Captain, listen to me, I said desperately. She's not human. She's some kind of parasite that Kael attacked me. Lyralei interrupted, her voice trembling with manufactured fear. He's been acting strangely for weeks. Obsessed. I think he's having some kind of breakdown. The security team's weapons turned toward me, and I realized the true horror of my situation. The Mordak could control what others saw, could manipulate perception itself. I was completely alone. The brig's containment field hummed with electronic authority, but it couldn't contain my racing thoughts. 3 hours had passed since they'd locked me away. 3 hours of pacing and planning while the creature that had destroyed the Nightingale walked free among my crewmates. Captain Morrison had ordered a full psychological evaluation, convinced that my obsession with the beautiful alien had driven me to violence. Dr. Chun had sedated me twice when I tried to explain what I'd seen, her medical training refusing to accept the impossible. Through the security monitor, I watched Lyralei in the mess hall, playing her role perfectly. She sat with a group of junior officers, accepting their comfort and sympathy with just the right mixture of gratitude and vulnerability. To them, she was the victim of an unhinged scientist's inappropriate advances. But I could see what they couldn't. The way the lights dimmed slightly wherever she went, the way crew members grew tired and listless after extended exposure to her presence. She was feeding, slowly and subtly, gathering strength for whatever came next. The door to my cell slid open, and Lyralei entered alone. The security cameras would show her visiting her supposed attacker, a gesture of forgiveness that would cement her victim status. You could have made this so much easier, she said, dropping her human facade now that we were alone. Her features shifted like water, beautiful and terrible in equal measure. I genuinely enjoyed our time together, Kael. You have such wonderful memories of Earth. Beaches, forests, cities full of life. They'll make excellent hunting grounds. The crew will figure it out eventually, I said, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. Will they? Humans are remarkably good at seeing what they want to see. By the time they realize the truth, I'll have fed enough to shed this fragile disguise entirely. She pressed her palm against the containment field, and I watched the energy barrier flicker and fail. The containment field's failure triggered automatic alarms, but they were too late. Lyralei, or the thing wearing her form, had already begun to change. Her skin rippled like disturbed water, revealing glimpses of the chitinous horror beneath. The temperature in the brig dropped 10 degrees in as many seconds. I want you to see this, she said, her voice fracturing into harmonics that made my teeth ache. I want you to understand what your beautiful Earth will become. The transformation was mesmerizing and revolting in equal measure. Her limbs stretched and segmented, revealing joints that bent in impossible directions. Her face split open like a flower, revealing rows of crystalline teeth and sensory organs that pulsed with their own light. What had once been hair became writhing tendrils that tasted the air with predatory intent. The Mordak have been shepherding species across the galaxy for millions of years, she explained, her true voice like breaking glass and dying stars. We find worlds rich with life, study them through the eyes of those we consume, then return with the knowledge needed for a perfect harvest. Through the cell's viewport, I could see other crew members collapsing in the corridors, their life force being drained to fuel her transformation. Morrison fell first, then Valdez, then Dr. Chun. One by one, the people I'd worked with for 3 years crumpled to the deck plating. Your ship's navigation computer has already been modified, she continued, her form now fully revealed in all its alien majesty. Earth's location has been transmitted to my kind. The harvest fleet will arrive within the year. I thought of home. Blue skies and white clouds, children playing in parks, lovers walking hand in hand along ocean shores. All of it about to become food for an ancient hunger. Why tell me this? I asked. Her laugh was like the sound of worlds dying. Because hope is the most delicious despair of all. The ship's emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light that made the Mordak's true form even more nightmarish. But as I watched her gloat over the coming destruction of my world, I realized something that gave me hope. She was still in Lyralei's form, at least partially, which meant she was still vulnerable to the same things that could hurt the woman she'd consumed. You made one mistake, I said, standing up despite the terror that threatened to paralyze me. Oh? And what's that? You made me fall in love with her. I lunged forward, not at the creature, but at the ship's environmental controls. My fingers flew over the interface, overriding safety protocols and flooding the compartment with pure oxygen. The Mordak shrieked as the atmosphere became toxic to her alien physiology, her form beginning to dissolve at the edges. You're destroying yourself too, she gasped, her beautiful face flickering in and out of existence. I know, I said, pulling out the plasma cutter I'd palmed from the emergency kit. But at least Earth will be safe. I ignited the cutter and held it to the oxygen-rich atmosphere. The explosion that followed vaporized the brig, the creature, and me in a flash of purifying fire. The ship's automatic systems contained the blast, but not before it had consumed every trace of the Mordak's presence. In the last moment before the flames took me, I thought I saw Lyralei's true face. Not the creature that had worn her form, but the real woman who had died 3 months ago. She was smiling, grateful that her stolen identity would no longer be used as a weapon against innocents. The emergency beacon I'd activated earlier would bring rescue ships within days. They would find the debris, investigate the explosion, and discover the truth in the ship's databanks. Earth would be warned. The harvest fleet would find humanity prepared. And somewhere in the space between heartbeats and eternity, I held onto the memory of falling in love with someone who had never really existed, knowing that even false love could inspire true sacrifice. The beautiful alien I loved was just the lure, but my love for her had been real enough to save a world.